All right, so we are standing on the road where our property is and where the creek is. And I wish I would have taken a before and after picture, or at least a before picture, to show you that before I could not get the quad through here because of all the trees that were in the way. I mean, the trees, the grass, the bumps. There were some hills that were probably 2 or 3 feet high that if you tried to climb, you'd roll back or backflip. So they leveled all those out. Actually, they borrowed some of that for the culvert. So this is where the end of our progress is at for the goat pens right here. And we stopped there because we knew that they were going to be coming out here to deal with the creek. And our plan now that everything has kind of been leveled out, is to just continue to cut across till, right about right in this area, and then follow the creek all the way back until we can kind of make a weird, I don't know what shape it would be, but it would meet with the other end of the fence basically, but go at this direction and then cut across when it meets that length. But at any rate, that's not what today's video is about, because we finally have a cleaned creek. And there go all the frogs. Well, they're everywhere. Now, this water level actually increased a little bit because of the way that the creek came out. It was actually being blocked under here. There was a pretty good portion of it that was being blocked. So they went through and they cleaned out this culvert really well, and that actually raised the water level a little bit here. It's probably going to come back down. But in this particular area, it used to be you could walk across this and not get your feet wet. Now, obviously, that's not the case. And there were some areas that the kids actually loved to stand in and not get their feet wet. So that's obviously been cleared. So we do actually have a little bit more water coming in, but the point is that it's actually able to get out now. If they had fixed this part and left the rest of it, then it would just compound the issue on our property. But as it stands, they were able to clear out both sides, mostly both sides. They went to where they didn't see any more blockage, and that's pretty much where they stopped. Of course, it's a kind of a muddy mess right now because they, were rolling dirt. A lot of this came from the creek, so just kind of spread it out a little bit. Give it a couple of weeks and it should be pretty dry. I'm not too worried about the dirt right now, but this is just neat. I wish I could have got video, but I didn't know how they felt about that. Even though it was on my property, I wasn't going to be like, hey, I'm going to YouTube with this. A lot of companies don't like that because it can portray them in a negative light. If you got some old-fashioned guys doing something, it just opens criticism for the new way to do things. So I didn't want to deal with that kind of stuff. So but this is all now cleaned out, and this is the original drain. This was installed, the county commissioner said it was installed in the late 1890s. So it's well over 100 years since this was installed. In fact, I don't even know if this road was here in the late 1890s. It might have been just a, horse trail or something like that went through here. I would actually like, I've Google searched this because I've actually been curious on how to find when roads are made. You go into a new development, of course a road is made then, but what about these dirt roads that, were they original Indian trails or something? I mean, I don't know. So I've always wondered, when was this street made? When was it put in officially? When, obviously we can't go back to the late 1800s with pictures, but I would just be curious. And I was asking the drain commissioner, where do you get that information from? How do you know there wasn't a house just right on the other side there and it's been down for 60 years? I mean, things like that. I've always wondered about that, but at any rate, it would be neat to see the history. Now this culvert here, it's kind of squished down, and he said that because of the the tractors and so on that come through here, the heavyweights, it's going to come down a little bit. And if it gets too bad where it really starts to squish and then the road starts to fail, that's when they'll come in and they'll replace it and whatever they need to do. But I guess this has been here for about 10 years, this particular culvert. So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. We never have a washout. We never have any flooding in this area anyway, because again, it was kind of blocked. But now it's not. Now it's free flowing and you can actually see the water flowing. It's really low water table now. We haven't had rain in a while and it's a pretty low water table. So I'm hoping that this will solve our problems. I really am. And we'll keep in touch with the drain commissioner. He's a really good guy. He knows his stuff. He's very nice. He's not just some elected member that sits in an office and directs other people. He was actually out here every day working this. So my absolute respect to him for actually getting out there and doing stuff. He had a chainsaw. He was cutting up stuff for the loader to be able to pull some of it out that the loader wasn't able to, some of the bigger stuff. And so much respect. He definitely earns his pay as a drain commissioner, I will say. Not to say that if you're an office dweller you don't earn your pay, but he gets out here in the thick of things to make sure that everything's going good and to participate. So that's definitely appreciated. He'll get my vote next election for sure. Anyway, so this is the private culvert, so to speak. Technically 100 feet on center on each side is an easement where the county can basically come in legally. Now I'm saying legally here, and it could be different for you or wherever you live, but legally the county could do what they did without our consent. I mean, you could fight certain things, you can have a hearing and stuff like that, but ultimately the county has a 50-foot on each side of the drain to be able to maintain it. That's their easement is what they call it. It's an actual easement. What is this here? I wonder what that is. Piece of wood or something? Sign maybe? Weird. Never noticed that before. I don't know what that is. Looks like it might be a plastic sign at one time. I'll have to wash that up, see if I can see anything on it. Anyway, so they've got their easement on each side, and technically, legally, they could give you the courtesy of sending you a letter saying this is what they're going to do, but they have the right to come in and do exactly what they just did. They have the right. I mean, if we had beautiful trees here that we didn't want touched, they would technically have the right to be able to move them or take them down or whatever, because they get an easement on each side. This is a county drain. Fortunately, we actually called them out, so it wasn't like they surprised us. We actually called them out. But either way, he was telling me that if he ever has to do work like this, he always reaches out to the landowners and the community to make sure they understand how it's going to benefit and what they have to do. And they really do minimize the amount of destruction. They get paid by the hour to do this stuff. Not the drain commissioner, he gets salary, but the people they hire, the drain commissioner has to contract it out, obviously. They get paid by the hour, and they want to get in and out. They don't want to spend, if they had a contractors in here cleaning up leaves and stuff for an hour when they should be moving forward, obviously they're going to find somebody else. So they try to be as efficient as possible. So like this one big tree that's standing here, there was absolutely no need to pull this tree down. It wasn't in their way, and they just left it there. Now, there was some box elder that I told him he could take out because we were going to do it anyways. This is a big box elder tree right here, and they grow like weeds. Box elder here, at least in Michigan, is invasive as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it officially or legally is, but to us it's invasive. I mean, you can cut it down to the stump and it'll grow right back, which is great for an unlimited supply of firewood if you look at it that way. But the downside is the box elder bugs here are absolutely terrible, and they don't seem to just live in the trees, they seem to live in your house too. So the fewer that the box elder trees are here, the better. That's as far as we're concerned. And so this was leaning inward anyway. It looked like it might eventually fall over. So I said, whatever you guys need to do to take out unless it's a beautiful tree like this. You know, if you can leave it, and this is a nice tree, if you can leave it. But if it's something you need to get out of the way, or something that just looks like it's dying, I mean, he pulled down some trees that were way off the path because they were, you know, he called them widowmakers, but they were basically falling over on other trees. He didn't have to do that. He could have been like, I'm just doing this area and I'm gone. So he actually came in and he pulled some of these trees down that were leaning over that eventually I would have had to deal with. So props to him for, you know, doing that while he was here. I mean, it wasn't like it was an extra 2 minutes for him to pull that tree down for me so that I didn't have to deal with it. There was a couple more over here that were leaning that were already dead that he took down for me. So very nice and very appreciative. And they did a great job. Now, this isn't going to be the case for everyone. The big thing, and he was even telling me some of the stories on the drain maintenance that he has to do, and some people just come out screaming because they don't want anybody on their property, even though legally there's an easement. And you could argue both sides. You could be in both sides, and you're not necessarily wrong, but the drains were established, you know, back in the 1880s, the 1870s. They were all established before land, you know, before this was privately owned land. It was all state land and stuff like that. So this stuff was all established, and so it has to be maintained. Otherwise, it can cause problems. So I completely understand. It's sad to see some trees come down, but we have so many trees on this property that if we lose a few, you know, right up against the creek, I mean, I don't know what this thing is right here, but it looks pretty nasty. Oh, I do remember what this one is. It's actually that one that's sitting right there. This one here, I was trying to cut up. It was 2 trees that had fallen over but hadn't died. It kind of fell over and they were sort of laying on the ground, but they weren't dead. They were still living. And I was trying to cut these up because I was trying to make a trail along the creek so I knew where my fence lines would be and so on. And I just gave up because it was so... And I could have done it if I would have spent all day working on it, but it was a mess. So this was that tree that they took out, which I'm glad that they did, because it was leaning pretty hard. It was on the ground, but it was still living, so it was really weird. So that's what that is, and that's what that is over there. I can actually see my cuts that I had done to it. So they moved it all over to the side, which is great. And moving down the line, this took them 3 days in total to do all this. It was 3 days. Look at how low. This is fascinating. I hear frogs everywhere. I don't know what those things are. Kind of berries of some kind. Some are green, some are orange. This is really neat because it kind of comes up a little bit. You can see. I don't know if that's going to be a concern. It probably won't be, because if the water level does get sufficiently high, then it'll just climb over it. But I just wondered if I should take a shovel and kind of scoop it away so it's got a better way to get out. But there you could almost walk across without getting your feet wet. And it's kind of collecting a little bit right here. So I'll have to ask Robert about that and see what he thinks. If it's even necessary, it might just go right over it. I don't know. I'm not a drain expert by any means. But yeah, you can definitely see where it's higher up in this area here for sure. What was that, a cicada? Definitely higher up here for sure. Some of these trees, the ones that were leaning in, he did say the ones that were leaning over the creek he was going to have to take down if they were close enough to the creek, which obviously this is basically on the creek. So completely understand why they had to take this one down. I don't know if it was a healthy tree or not. It's probably one of these that's laying over in that area there. Who knows? But yeah, all of this here, I could not get through at all. I mean, walking through it was terrible enough, climbing over these trees, and now we can just walk right through. It's really weird. It's open. It's weird and it's open. So there's still some sticks and some brush and so on that's there, but they still came down quite a ways, and they still widened it out. They scooped out as much as they could. They got the big blockages out of the way. He did say that most of this will just wash naturally down, so I'm expecting it to do that, but I can still keep an eye on it. I mean, I love walking the property, so I can still keep an eye on it. If I see something that's causing an issue, I can of course pull it out. It's not gonna be a big deal, but the water does kind of stagnate right here. It's kind of weird. It does stagnate, but they stopped, I believe they stopped, Yeah, they stopped right about in this area here. Even though he drove all the way that way, I think they determined that this wasn't an issue. But it does look awful. I mean, I can see water moving, but that's definitely moving really slow. So yeah, a lot of this I could never get to. I really could not. And this part has always been, frogs everywhere. This part has always been really passable as far as on foot and quad. This has been the drier side of things. The creek on that side has always been the wet side. But this actually starts to run into our Horseshoe pond that we have quite a ways back there. There's an outlet for the Horseshoe. It's a spring, and that's how it's fed constantly. We call it the Horseshoe because it's got a little island in the middle, and the water shaped like a horseshoe. But that starts up there in that area, and then it comes down here. You can actually see T-posts. This was all pasture. This was all, at one time, this was pasture. Cows. Previous guy had an exotic animal license, so he had things like zebra, which are weird to me, and I don't know, an antelope or something. He had some weird animals. Nonetheless, it's really weird being able to see all this stuff. Then you see people drive by real slow, and you're okay. What are they? You know, this is what happens when you live out in the country. Because when you don't see a car, that's normal. When you see a car, what are they up to? It's just the way it is. Especially if they slow down and look at your property. It's like they're staking out the property. But anyways, so somewhere in this area, and I'll probably hit it and get wet feet before I realize that I'm on top of it. Somewhere in this area, and I think it's right behind that brush right there, is the feed line for the Horseshoe, or the exit line for the Horseshoe. And that definitely, we have to, because it's private, we can pay somebody to come out and dredge it, obviously, and get it all cleaned up. Or we can do it ourselves, because it's considered a private thing. It's not part of the county. It just drains into the county. Of course, we saw all the permits and so on that had to be made. It had to have been a lot of money to put something like that in. Look, there's a 4x4 post. I mean, this is all area that, yes, you could walk, but you struggled. And it's nice that, I mean, I can see the water. I can see it back there. You probably can't see it all that well. There's some more over there. I can see where it's feeding in, and it dumps right here, because it kind of zigzags around, and it dumps right in this area right here. But look at this. This is so neat to see. These are lily pads, okay? Now, they do not stick out of the water this far. They don't. They barely come out of the water. So if that's not something for perspective on how low the water level has gone thanks to the work that they've done, you can see those lily pads have to be at least 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet out of the water. So 2 to 2.5 feet, consider that is where the water used to be. That's how high it was. And now it's way down. If you look at, I'm going to try to get closer. I'm actually not familiar with this area here, believe it or not. It looks pretty close to the... All right, so this is the inlet right here for the... Yeah, I can see it following down. So this is the inlet, or the outlet, I'm sorry. The outlet for the Horseshoe. And look at some of those lily pads. They're even more out. This is... Wow, I'm seeing this for the first time. I'm telling you, this is crazy. You could almost walk out there now. And it used to be, you couldn't get anywhere close to it. But wow, I'm trying to do this without sinking in. There's where I'm going to sink in. Look at that. I know there's not much perspective. That is almost low enough to walk across. That is crazy. I'm seeing this for the first time, so I'm sorry I'm overjoyed, but this is not something we've been able to ever see in 3 years. And probably this pond hasn't been able to see either. So this pond was here on the original maps going all the way back to what they suspect the 1800s. This pond has always been here. And when they put the creeks in, they put the North Creek in, and then they put the East to West Creek in. What the drain commissioner suspects is they just tied everything into this pond here. They weren't going to try to go around it or anything. They just tied it all right here because it was already collecting water, so they figured that it was a good reservoir. But look at that. That is crazy. Look, I mean, I am blown away at how much water has come down in just that short period of time. It's only been about a week since they started. A week and 2 days. But the water level has already come down. We had a heavy rain, and even despite that heavy rain, the water level has come down significantly. I mean, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing to be able to see it like this. And it's funny because we joked about getting a paddle boat out here so that we could fish from this. We're not going to need to do that anymore. We can walk out there in our waders now, but there's probably going to be no fish now. I'm curious to see if all of, I mean, they're already dying, but I'm curious to see all of these lily pads. They're definitely going to be dying off. There's no doubt about that. They're going to be dying off. But the nice thing is that now the water that's coming in can get out, because again, we have a creek here and we have this creek here, and it converges right here on this pond, which you can hardly see because of all the grass. And then it has one exit, which is right out there. It goes out there. And since they've done all this work, it's substantially lowered. Substantial. It's crazy. It really is. I'm actually curious. I kind of want to drive over to the other side, but that was really wet last, it was only about 4 days ago. It was still really wet. In fact, I got the quad stuck over there because I got too cocky and thought I could get through, and then I ended up getting hung up. But it might be even better now. I'm not sure. You know, I haven't seen any ticks over the past month or so. I haven't seen a single one. They were real bad to start the year off, the season that is. But I don't see any. Anyways, that is so neat. I mean, that is the neatest thing. And it's just weird to see all the lily pads sticking out. It's like the dam just opened up. It's so weird to us. And you can see the extent of the damage. Those trees are a good 100 feet, 150 feet off of this pond right here. Those were perfectly viable, living trees that have all died because they just drowned. They got flooded over. They drowned. So it's you can see the damage that had happened over the course of probably 20, 30 years of damage because this wasn't maintained properly. But now we can stay on top of it. Again, drain commissioner, he's a good guy. If we have any issues, you know, our taxes pay for this drain. They do. It's considered a public property. And from what I understand, I'm not a legal expert, and I haven't stated that I ever have been, but from what I understand, you can legally walk down the middle of a county drain. Legally. Walk down the middle of a county drain. Even if it's on someone's property, goes through someone's property, and they can't cite you for trespassing. But as soon as you step foot on their property, then you could be cited for trespassing. But you stay right in the middle of this. So if you got waders on and you're walking all the way through someone's property, you can walk through all that, all the way down. As long as you're on the county drain, then it's considered a public property, which is just strange to think about, but it's just the way that it is. So, yes, I am absolutely super excited. I cannot wait to show Danielle. She's actually at work. I cannot wait to show her this because we've never been able to see this before. And I'm not kidding when I say that you wouldn't even get close to this and you would start squish, 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 go a little bit further, and then you're ankle deep, go a little further, you're knee deep. I mean, that's how bad it was. You can see some of the grass that was covered in water has just kind of died off. This is awesome. This is great. I'm excited. I am excited. I kind of wish they would have come up. Oh, see, we got a big, I don't know if I can yank that out or not. I'll have to see, get my waders on, see if I can yank it out. But yeah, that's a blockage right there for sure. I'm surprised too because, well, it looks like, yeah, they only got as far as there, so they probably didn't see this. But It's still pretty grassy and weedy right here, but it's far and above better than what it was. And our horseshoe has dropped a little bit. It's not going to be a lot, but it did drop a little bit. So I expected that because this creek was kind of filling into the horseshoe. I'm really curious now because I want to drive the quad. It used to be basically impassable. It was so muddy and so on back in that area. It's weird. The first year we were here, I was exploring and I was back in this area right here, which is not a floodplain by any means. It's not. And the first year I was mowing paths and trails for the kids. They have airsoft and things like that. I was mowing those trails. And the very next year, I couldn't get a foot into it without sinking. And that's what kind of made me think, oh, you know, we got a lot of rain. But then the next year it got even worse. And I said, well, we're going to have to do something because we're losing our property. We're literally losing our property slowly because of the creek. So fortunately, we have a very good drain commissioner who came out several times, did his homework, knew exactly what he needed to do, knew it was really bad, some of the worst he's seen, and was able to get it taken care of in about 3 days' time. So, you know, props to him. I mean, he went through basically, it was about 30, consider in length, about 30 acres in length or so, because he had to go over to the other guy's property as well and clean some of that up. So about 10 acres a day is what they accomplished, and that's with taking trees out, lunch breaks, you know, stuff like that. So about 3 days worth of work, and he was able to get this all cleaned up. So very, very impressive. This is just neat. I mean, I'm fascinated by this stuff. I absolutely am. And one of the reasons that we moved out here was because of the creek. One of the many reasons, but having a water supply in case, God forbid, something goes wrong with the world. Yeah, you could argue, oh, they're just going to poison the water supply. I've heard the back and forth on that whole thing where people buy property because it's got a natural spring or a whatever, but radiation, if it's a nuclear, you know, all this other stuff and whatever. We stand a better chance of surviving here than if we had nothing at all. That's all there is to it. I mean, really, that's all there is to it. We have a better chance, and that's what you want to do. You want to best your odds. So you pray that nothing happens to the water, but yes, it is possible that something could happen to the water. So at any rate, I think this is pretty cool. I don't know what you guys think, but it's really neat, especially seeing that pond back there. It's got to be down 3.5 feet. It has to be. And this was all water this is 3 feet of water that was basically flooding our property, that was just going out it had nowhere else to go. And now it's able to get out. And where the natural part is, which is, you know, about a mile that way, is free and clear. So at any rate, cool. I got to get back inside because I got to get back to work. I just wanted to show this because I think it's pretty neat. I got my work cut out for me. They saved me a lot of time, though, getting trees down, especially the big ones. But I got my work cut out for me. There's a lot of this here that's very usable. You know, not all of it was just laying in the creek, so it's all rotting away. There's some very usable timber here for us to be able to burn with. Not this season, I don't think. There's a few trees that did fall that I had cut up before or that had already fallen. But not very many. A lot of this stuff is going to be burned the season after next. But I think it's neat that they left this one tree here. It just looks kind of out of place. It's just kind of weird. But hopefully a lot of these trees come back and they'll be able to kind of rebuild. I mean, nature will always take back what you take down, but hopefully now we can maintain it orderly and whatever. Anyway, we're going on 30 minutes. Hope you enjoyed this video. This is the third and final video. And yeah, it's very exciting seeing that culvert, which is comically too small for this drain, but if it becomes a problem, they'll replace it, I believe. But yeah, funny. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this off so I can get to work. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.